it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen. My favorite Twitch channel has just disappeared. Does anyone know what happened to the 4 idiots? By Trash Tia. Wendy Darlings, Tommy Emu, Jasper Lee. Do any of these names look familiar to you? Because I feel like I'm losing my freaking mind. I've been watching this channel for months. They've been my comfort Twitch streamers, and now they've dropped off the face of the earth. Nobody's talking about them or tweeting about them. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't know where they've gone. I don't know if maybe I hallucinated them. But I couldn't have, right? I mean, they're real. I know they are. Now, before I start this, I want to make it clear I'm not under the influence of alcohol or drugs. I've never touched the stuff. I want you to know that everything I'm going to tell you is true. If it wasn't, I'd be wasting my freaking time. You think I do this for fun? No. I need someone to tell me they're real. I need someone to tell me I'm not the only one who watched their stream last night before they vanished. Well, I guess I'll start by saying I've never really been into Twitch. I'm more of a YouTube kind of person. The only thing I watch these days are movie reviews. All those therapeutic Korean cooking vlogs I put in the background while I'm working. I used to like vloggers when I was younger. Like lifestyle and beauty, that kind of thing. But I quickly grew out of them, just like everyone else my age. Now, the channel I'm going to be talking about are called The 4 Idiots. I found them by accident, really. My friend told me to download Twitch so we could watch one of her favorite YouTubers when we hung out. And I forgot to delete it. A notification popped up on my phone suggesting streamers that I should watch. Well, none of them really interested me. I was about to click off the notification when I tapped on it instead. And it brought me to a random streamer. They had around 300 subs, and the chat was pretty dead. But I wasn't watching a playthrough or just a guy or girl screaming at whatever they were reacting to. Instead, I was greeted to 3 20-somethings sitting around a campfire on fold-out camping chairs. Behind them, the sky was awash with bright oranges and yellows. Sunset. Not much light, except the dying sunlight spattering the horizon and the glow of the fire. Well, that just made it all the more comforting. I felt like I was there, in a way. I could almost feel the heat of the fire, the light breeze rustling the trees on my face. Well, I started to click off it, but then someone laughed. It was a type of laugh I missed. Oh, I miss socializing and being around people who laugh like that. And so, I kept watching. There were 2 guys and a girl sitting together. I turned in right in the middle of what sounded like a story one of the guys was telling, with the other 2 leaning forward in anticipation. Automatically, I felt a sense of comfort. Their voices were low and giggly, possibly influenced by the multiple beer cans on the ground, but they looked happy. They were all smiles, wrapped up in colorful blankets. "Is there an ending to this story?" the girl hummed, her voice slurred. She grabbed a can and cracked it open, taking a long swig. I got a message in the chat. "Wendy, you're gonna barf, LMAO." Oh, she must have seen it because the girl sent the camera the finger, her lips curving into a smirk. "Shh." She held her index finger to her lips. "Tommy's in story mode." The guy sitting next to her, hiding under a blue hoodie, chuckled. "Well, now you've distracted me." "Oh, Jesus Christ," another guy who at first I couldn't see, but then I caught a figure sitting between Wendy's legs, cradling a beer. He let out an exasperated laugh. "Yeah, you got to the part where the girl was running down the street. She just found the guy's head." Well, there was a pause before the hooded guy groaned. He tipped his head back and flashed the others a smile I could barely see in the dying light. I only knew he was smiling because of some eagle-eyed viewer in the chat who was giving a detailed description of what I was watching, all in capitals. Oh, fuck. I've blanked. "Are you kidding me?" the girl hissed. "You spent nearly half an hour telling a story without an ending." Woody rested his head in his lap. "It's chat's fault. They wanted a story." "Yeah, but with an ending." The girl raised her beer can and took aim at the guy's head, the chat filling with laughing emotes. I guess that's what got me into them. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have many friends. I have friends, sure, but I don't have those kind of friends. Friends drift apart, and I know that. I knew that when my best friend stopped talking to me as soon as we graduated high school. My childhood friends deleted me off of Instagram. It happens. We're all used to it. Friends fizzle out and fade away. It's a natural part of life. We gain some and we lose some. So I started living my life vicariously through their videos. Well, as stupid as that sounds. Something about that first stream pulled me in. I became, I guess, addicted. I started looking out for their streams. And when they went live, I'd curl up in bed under my blankets and watch them cook weird recipes or play hide and seek around their shared apartment. It was their personalities that kept me watching. Wendy was the only girl, acting like a sort of mother to the guys. She had a strong southern twang, and I loved her voice. Oh, her laugh was contagious. When she laughed, I laughed. The guys were Tommy and Jasper. Tommy was the quiet and reserved one who usually avoided the camera, unless he was drunk, while Jasper was a self-proclaimed loud friend who was the one to come up with whatever crazy shit they'd do that week. It had been his idea to see if Barbies melted in the microwave. Spoiler alert, they do. And it ended up nearly burning down their place. For their 200 subscriber special, they made a cake, then threw it in the bathtub and made it into a kind of soup. On Wendy's 22nd birthday, the boys threw her in a pool full of candy snakes. It sounds childish, like the stuff they do, but really, it was just harmless fun. The four idiots were like every prank channel, if those channels were actually respectful. I fell for them, hard. They each had distinct quirks that I took notice of. Wendy was into anime, and the boys teased her for it. Tommy was competitive during playthroughs and game nights, and Jasper was practically narcoleptic. Well, he fell asleep in most of their 24-hour streams, or even normal ones that they did every day. The chat called him a vampire. I remember their Halloween stream from last year. Jasper had lasted maybe an hour past midnight and then zonked out. They were supposed to have a movie night and stream all the King classics, ones that the chat had voted on. Instead, Tommy and Wendy ended up getting freaked out during the first hour of The Shining and ended up playing Among Us till 6 a.m. Well, it's funny. Even when one of them wasn't there, or in Jasper's case, had passed out on the floor underneath a mountain of pillows, they still got along like best friends. The chat sometimes talked about relationships sparking between them, like so-called glances and touching. But I ignored it. My friend was a prime example of the type of fans that creep me out. You know, the one who draws diagrams of their favorite streamer's house and goes into meltdown on Twitter over every little thing a streamer did or said. But it wasn't like that in our bubble. There weren't many of us, and Wendy, Tommy and Jasper saw everything we typed. So if there were any freaks, they were banned by the mods. And besides, everyone was nice. It was in one of their first streams I watched, which revealed the four idiots' so-called origin story. They were college roommates who'd moved out and got an apartment together. Wendy worked at a health store. Tommy was a freelance writer, and Jasper, a dog walker. When Tommy started a project for an amateur zombie movie, they started streaming behind-the-scenes footage on Twitch. After gaining a small following, the four idiots decided to continue. They didn't get big, and they didn't want to get big. I think they just liked acting like idiots together. Like in every group of YouTubers, or anyone famous, there's always a favorite. Now, I'm not saying these guys were known, because they weren't. My friend had no idea who they were, and I wanted to keep it that way. They didn't have a huge fan base, but the 100 or so people who were subscribed to them were obsessed with Jasper and Tommy. I could see the appeal. Jasper's Australian accent was one thing, though there was something unique about their faces and the way they spoke. It was an attractiveness I'd never really seen before. I can't explain it. Speaking for all three of them, they were all pretty to look at. Wendy's hair was silk obsidian, framing a heart-shaped face, warm chestnut skin perfectly defining her features. It wasn't a secret that she hated the way she looked. In almost every stream, she insisted on covering up in a sweater over leggings or hiding her face with a sweater sleeve. The chat were kind to her, always giving her compliments when she talked in a self-deprecating way. Though it was the boys who helped her. If she was feeling bad about herself or was noticeably upset in the stream, they cracked jokes and pull faces until she cracked a smile. Well, it's funny, I didn't just love their friendship. I envied it. I wanted it for myself. I wanted friends who cared about me like that, friends who I could share an experience with. I wish I could go on to tell you everything about the four idiots, but, well, I can't. And that's why I'm here writing this. I want to tell you as much as possible, because something bad has happened to them. And this is the only place I feel like I won't get ridiculed. Last night I watched their stream, before they disappeared off of Twitch, Twitter, well, every social media platform. Their last stream started off pretty normal. The four idiots went live later than normal. Usually it was around 7 or 8 p.m, though last night they started streaming at around 11. I was about to go to sleep, and my phone flashed with a notification. I've been waiting for them all night. They were active on social media all day. I'd watched Wendy's Instagram stories, all of which were her choosing a dress for some kind of event she was talking cryptically about. When I swiped the notification open, the stream popped up. There were maybe 200 viewers already, and the chat was filled with greetings as usual. Wendy was standing in front of an expensive-looking mirror, pointing the camera at herself. I didn't recognize their usual apartment in the background, and most of the time they streamed in their kitchen. I glimpsed a glittering chandelier hanging from an unfamiliar ceiling. It looked like she was in the foyer of a fancy hotel. Wendy wore a low-cut baby blue dress, her dark hair pulled into a red ribbon. She looked like a Disney princess. It was the first time she was wearing something that revealing. Well, I could relate. I avoid wearing those kind of clothes too. I hate showing too much skin. Hey guys. Wendy was her usual chipper self, though her voice was low. We're at a party right now. It's for some sponsor we managed to get, so we kind of have to come. She did an awkward little turn. Do I look okay? There was a smile on her face, but I could tell she was self-conscious. The chat was already flooding with compliments. I watched her eyes flicker as she read the chat on the screen. Oh, my dress. Her expression brightened. Tessa M., thank you so much. I'm not actually sure where it's from. It came in the post. More messages were popping up, and Wendy answered each and every person. Yeah, we're all here. Oh, it's some super fancy mansion in the middle of nowhere. No, I don't think that YouTuber's here. Be cool if he was, though. Her eyes lit up suddenly. She straightened up. Where are the boys? Oh, well, right here. Jasper jumped into frame, and the few hundred people watching started sending his name in all caps. I'd never seen anyone who could pull off the casual look so well, but with him it was child's play. Unlike Wendy, he was dressed down in a white shirt and jeans, his dark hair hiding under a beanie. What's up? He greeted our chat as usual, his accent twanging. Yeah, I'm slightly tipsy, and no, I'm not going to pass out. Jasper raised his brow. Who passes out at a party? You'd have to be pretty freaking wasted to pass out at this kind of place. Are you forgetting you're practically a vampire? Tommy's voice came out of nowhere. I could just about glimpse his familiar blue hooded sweatshirt in the back. He joined Jasper, throwing his arms around the guy. Well, Tommy wasn't dressed up either, though I had expected it. He never really was, always choosing to wear t-shirts and sweats, sometimes pajamas. Tommy's hair was a mess, as usual, though somehow he could make that look good. He constantly looked like he'd gotten out of bed, and maybe that was the appeal for some of the subs. His gaze went to the camera, lazy and not quite focused. The two of them always got pretty close when they were drunk. Tommy grinned, and the chat went crazy. Well, I can bet anyone in the chat that Jasper will be knocked out on the sofa by midnight. And if I'm right, he's got to do a striptease. Jasper pulled away with an eye roll. Wendy, who was ignoring their back and forth, was still responding to chat messages. And, if you're wrong, he gave Tommy a little shove. What happens if I manage to stay awake? All night? The edges of Tommy's lips curved into a smirk. Well, then I'll do the striptease. Fine. Jasper folded his arms. You're on. We have underage subs, you idiots, Wendy hissed. Tommy folded his arms. All right, strip to boxes. His gaze snapped to the phone. We all in agreement? Obviously, the chat freaked out. I can admit I was one of those who typed yes. Wendy was rolling her eyes, and I found myself laughing along with her in the chat. Again, it's like I was there. It's like I was part of their friend group. Can you guys stop acting like children for like 10 minutes? We're supposed to be acting professional. Her eyes widened suddenly. I realized she'd seen something or someone off camera. I saw the chat starting to ask who it was before a figure appeared half off camera. I could just about make out a head of blonde curls. They were holding a tray with 4 glasses filled to the brim. Automatically, Wendy's stance changed and the screen went dark for a moment. I only caught a glimpse of her wide smile and the chandelier before the screen went completely dark. It looked like she'd stuffed her phone in her bag. Well, there were still voices, though, buzzing through static. Couldn't make out what they were saying. Someone in the chat was trying to translate. Loverboy 6785. They're talking about the sponsorship, I think. Wendy's thanking the guy for the invite, and Tommy just denied a glass of whatever they're drinking. I can't hear what Jasper's saying. LOL. I think his mouth is full. Thanks to the translator, who was somehow managing to interpret everyone's words through a buzz of white noise, we got a vague impression of what was going on. It stayed like that for a few minutes before Wendy's face swam back into view. This time she was outside. It was night, and I could just about make out a glimmer of moonlight poking through the milky white clouds. Behind her, there were a group of partygoers, all in fancy clothes, suits and sparkling dresses. Wendy was sitting down, and when she turned the camera around, a glistening pool came into focus. She was dangling her feet, her toes grazing the surface. She let out a sigh. So, we're not allowed to film. I'm bored. I don't really know anyone, so I'm going to chill with you guys and watch the guys fail at social interaction. When the chat started asking her to show the party, she did, though subtly, managing not to get caught. I saw Jasper talking to a bunch of guys, though he already looked like he'd tuned out. Couldn't see Tommy, though. I did notice everyone except Wendy was avoiding the pool. Well, the chat filled with pleas for Wendy to dive in, and she saw them and laughed. Are you kidding? She whispered, giggling. I don't have a swimsuit for one, and the pool's just for show. We're not allowed in. When a group of girls walked by, there was a jolting movement when Wendy stuffed the phone back in her lap. Again, we were greeted to a black screen. A new voice sounded out, and the chat were already trying to figure out who it was. When Wendy moved slightly, we got a brief flash of a guy in a black, loose-collared shirt. His voice was smooth. What's a pretty girl like you doing all alone? Wendy snorted. I'm just hanging out. You're Wendy, right, from the 4 Idiots. Sorry, I can't say I've heard of you until tonight. Do you want a drink? Wendy's tone was her usual over-happy twang. Well, I'm not really thirsty. He chuckled. All right, then. Well, it's pretty sad that you're not even trying to make conversation with people. Wendy's laugh was nervous. There was a muffling sound, and I realized she was wrapping her fingers around the phone, playing with it in her lap. Well, the chat were already yelling at her to move away from this guy. I'm okay. I'm just going to hang out here. A light splash indicated her kicking feet in the water. Well, it's nice by the pool. Do you want to come inside? His voice sounded closer now. We're having a little get-together. Your boys are joining us. Wendy's tone hardened. I'm not interested. They're grown adults. They can do what they want. Her voice was shaking now. "I'm staying here, okay? I like it here, and besides, I don't really like these kind of parties." "So you're gonna stay and be a boring bitch?" He scoffed. When Wendy picked up the phone again, we got a flash of his smile in the shadow, though his identity bled into the night. When he jumped up and turned to walk away, she shot him the finger. "Suit yourself." When he turned back, his gaze flicked to the pool. "Oh, why not take a dip, huh? It's a nice night, sweetheart." He held up his hands then. "Oh, I gotta say, maybe cover up first. I'm gonna be straight with you, 'cause you're one of us now. And I suggest either going on a diet or maybe getting surgery. Well, we love a girl with curves, but you're a little too curvy, if you know what I mean." "Oh, I'm being harsh, sweetheart. Well, it's just how we do things here." It laughed, and it sounded like Wendy was crying. Chat imploded with capitalized threats to this guy. "Oh, come on, I haven't upset you, have I?" "No." Wendy's reply, though, was automatic, and the camera's focus dropped to her bare feet. "No, I'm fine." "Good." He walked away. "And by the way, we are expecting you inside. I'd hurry up if I were you." I was shocked by his words, and judging from Wendy's silence, so was she. There was an awkward pause when she was sniffling, clearly trying to get a hold of herself. When he was gone, Wendy brought the phone up to her face and pretended to gag, though her eyes were red and puffy. When Chat asked if she was okay, she nodded and smiled, ignoring messages telling her to go and kick his ass. "Yeah, guys suck," Wendy murmured before getting to her feet and smoothing down her dress. "What do you think, Chat?" Her steps were slow as she moved around the pool, her bare feet slapping on the smooth concrete. She got dangerously close to the edge, panning the camera over the pool's surface. When she turned the camera around, Wendy's smile was bright, her eyes wide and playful, though I glimpsed a glint of hysteria bubbling underneath. "Well, should I do it? Should I jump in?" Well, the Chat responded with a plethora of yeses, but some no's. Most people were telling her to push whoever had just verbally abused her into the pool. But she was ignoring them, instead panning the camera around the party. Most of the partygoers had gone inside, and when she focused on the sky, a crescent moon was visible. She hummed wistfully. "Oh, I love a moonlit night. Feels magical, you know. Like anything can happen." It looked like she was really going to jump in. I sensed the urge writhing through her with the camera movement, the way she was hanging over the edge. And before she could, though, she was dragged back and the camera wobbled. There was a flash of Tommy's hoodie. "Wendy." There was something wrong with his voice, and I wasn't the only one to notice. "We're leaving, okay?" When Wendy stabled herself, she pointed the camera directly at him. Well, Tommy looked disheveled. That's the only word I can think to describe him. He didn't look drunk anymore. His eyes were wide and alert, lips twisted into a scowl. I noticed they were the only ones left outside. The rest of the party were gone. A message on chat popped up, and I pretended not to see it. Jinx star 5687. Is anyone else getting a bad feeling? Where's the rest of the party? What the fuck is wrong with Tommy? Wendy must have noticed Tommy's expression. "Are you okay?" she whispered. He nodded. "Yeah, I will be." Running a hand through his hair, Tommy squeezed his eyes shut. His voice was slightly slurred, and he was swaying, but he didn't look drunk. He looked too freaked out to be drunk. I did something I shouldn't have. I made a mistake, right? Oh, fuck this party. We get Jasper and we go." "Huh?" Wendy's tone softened. "Tommy, what did you do?" He shook his head, eyes blinking back open. "Stop screaming." He reached forward, his hand closing over the camera, and again the screen went dark. I think it was muted too. The chat was exploding with theories. Some people were talking about the whole party being some kind of joke or prank, while others were shouting in capitals that something was wrong. I got the same person asking for their location, but nobody knew it. All we knew was from Wendy herself, that they were at some party being held at a mansion in the middle of nowhere. When the stream didn't come back, I started to wonder if it was all an elaborate joke. Tommy was an aspiring filmmaker and Jasper a writer, so it would make sense if it was one of their tricks. Or maybe they were just promoting a new project. I watched viewers start to drop from around 200 people to 75. It was 3 a.m. and I was struggling to keep my eyes open, but, well, I had to know. The whole thing was playing out like a story. Everything that had happened looked fictional. The fat-shaming conversation and Wendy's sudden obsession with jumping into the pool. I couldn't stop thinking about Tommy's expression. I didn't want to think about it at the time. I guess I was in denial. He was terrified, I thought. He was shaking, his body trembling, swaying side to side like he'd taken something. On my phone, there's an option to minimize a stream so I can go on a different app. Well, I ended up watching a Markiplier video in the background. It was something to distract me, and I needed it. Well, I was maybe 10 minutes immersed in a horror game when the stream came back to life. I noticed the black screen flickered, and there was a flash of Wendy's face. With my stomach lurching into my throat, I went back to the Twitch app. The background had changed again. This time they were inside, though the light was dim. It almost looked like candlelight. Wendy's face was lit up in orange flame, though there was something wrong. I could tell she was holding the phone below her and panic on her face. She was silent, and she was standing with Tommy and Jasper either side of her. There was something red, something smeared over Tommy's lips. His eyes weren't quite focused. He was staring at something beyond the camera, while Jasper was visibly shaking. "Good to have you guys here," a voice murmured. I didn't recognize it. A figure moved around the three of them, a shadow bleeding into the dark. I waited for one of them to try and move away, to try and scream. But then I realized from the look of Wendy's expression that she was struggling. Something cold, something icy slipped down my spine, and I came to the same conclusion as the chat. Are they tied up? That same message was popping up, some in caps, some barely decipherable, while others were calling out bullshit and that it was all just a prank. I couldn't say that, though, because it looked real. Wendy's cheeks were pale, her eyes wide, her body seemingly petrified in place, well, apart from the struggling. I wanted to turn it off. Something inside me, an intense force, was begging me to tap the little X icon at the top of the screen, but I couldn't. When Wendy finally opened her mouth, she was sobbing. "Please," she whispered. We didn't know. We didn't know about any of this." A laugh. "Oh, really? So, you four, a channel with barely 500 subs who somehow managed to scrape a sponsor, don't want this? You're lucky we're even giving you the time of day. Do you know how hard it is to be a content creator these days? And thanks to a certain person's sacrifice, we can finally take on a new channel." Something else was said, though I just can't remember what it was. I just remember his answer. "Oh, it'll be a glorious sacrifice. Don't worry, you'll take the dive too." Tommy shook his head. "There's been some kind of mistake," he whispered, his voice squeaking into a yelp when claw-like fingers wound their way into his hair, strands of raven bleeding between bony fingers and yanking hard. When Wendy cried out for him to be let go, a pale hand grasped her chin, delicate fingers grazing her jaw. They wrenched her head to the left and then to the right. A cacophony of laughter started up around the room, bouncing off of the walls. "What do you guys think?" the voice murmured. "Do we like them?" "Oh, they're sublime. Creatures worth being given a second chance," a nameless male grunted. I noticed a shadow appear behind Jasper, pale pink fingernails slick with scarlet brushing across his lips. Jasper didn't move, but his eyes flickered. Oh, I can't put into words what I felt like watching this. I wanted Wendy to put the camera down. Well, it felt wrong. It felt like someone was going to break through my window any moment and stab me through the heart. This was private, and wrong, and illegal. Something was lowered on Wendy's head, something I couldn't see. It looked like a crown. At least that's what chat seemed to think. A crown of thorns and glass, someone said. Whoever was placing it on her head had no mercy. When the glass cut into her skin and glistening red streamed down her temple, they pushed further, ignoring Wendy's startled cry. She was offered what looked like a party cup, though I noticed the rim was stained bright red. "Police!" Chat was screaming. "Someone call the police! Why isn't this getting more views?" "They blocked outsiders," another person said. "Anyone who hasn't watched them before can't get in." My hands were shaking. I was aware of a crown being lowered onto Tommy's head. He was struggling violently, but they persisted, and spiked glass and thorns sliced into his flesh, blood dribbling down pale skin. I was typing something out. I can't remember what it was. Well, that's before the stream cut off completely. For a disorienting moment, I was paralyzed, choking on barf at the back of my throat. My first thought was to call the police. My first thought was to wake my roommate, to do something, anything. But part of me was still in denial. I wanted to believe it wasn't real. It felt wrong to be alone with what I knew, and without the chat, without the 50 or so people who'd been watching too, I felt alone. Can't remember what I did afterwards. I sat and watched the Twitch homepage, I suppose. I watched normal streams and typed, "Help the 4 idiots. They need help." But I was ignored. Nobody knew who they were. When I searched for them on Twitter, all that came up were their personal handles. Well, I was at a loss. I texted my friend who thought I was playing around. While I was sending her a detailed paragraph of what I'd witnessed, a notification popped up on my screen. "The 4 idiots are going live now." Oh, I didn't want to click on it. I don't know what possessed me to tap it, but I did. Once again, I was brought to the stream. There were 25 viewers now, even fewer people than last time. Wendy's sobs could be heard, and Jasper's reassuring shushing noises. "Call the police. Call, she was whispering. Please call the police." "I can't." Jasper's hiss was borderline hysterical. "They've blocked us." He let out a sharp breath, which sounded like a laugh. "Are you streaming?" "Yeah, they can help us." "Well, in that case, we're..." I waited for Jasper to say the address, but his voice was muffled, like it was underwater, before it drifted back to clarity. "Do you hear me?" But again his voice was incoherent, drowned out by white noise. "Oh, fuck." He seemed to notice after a third or fourth attempt. "The bastards are playing mind games with us. Something's stopping me from saying..." "Guys." Oh, that same voice from before, the one who had spoken in the candlelit room. Footsteps getting closer. Wendy and Jasper let out a collective gasp. It sounded like they were in a cupboard or a closet. "Oh, I didn't think you'd run." The footsteps sounded almost playful. "Oh, I thought you'd embrace it. That's what you've wanted, am I right?" That's why you came here tonight. His steps slowed down. You couldn't resist the temptation. Well, Jasper laughed. It was throaty and harsh. What the fuck are you talking about? Wendy squeaked, hissing at him to be quiet, but the sound of a door creaked open, signifying them leaving the closet. The screen stayed black. There was a flash of light. "No, wait," she whispered. "Jasper, don't." "Just let me talk to him," he growled. "You find Tommy. Get out of here, all right?" He then let out a shuddery breath. "We're okay, Wendy. This is just some big fucked up misunderstanding, okay? I'll get us out of here." Wendy started to protest, but faded footsteps meant Jasper was moving away, leaving her alone. There was a pause before she laughed, but it was harsh and choked. "Go to a party," they said. "It'll be fun," they said. The stream was muted again. The only thing I saw were flashes of light, which I figured was Wendy peeking out of hiding every so often. Then it went completely black for a while, and I kept watching. It was like a car crash I couldn't look away from. When the stream came back fully, she was outside again. I could see the glimmer of the pool in the distance. This time the camera was wobbling and jerking. There were glimpses of different things at various angles. A sun lounger, an inflatable beach ball, a drink sitting abandoned on a glass table. Wendy's steps were almost drunken, her feet slapping on smooth concrete. There was no sign of Jasper. It wasn't until someone in the chat pointed it out that I finally noticed what was going on. "She can't see," someone typed. "Look at the way she's walking. She's covering her eyes." Why, though? I thought hysterically. Why was Wendy covering her eyes? There was further confirmation of that when she tripped over something and fell to her knees. The phone dropped too, skirting across the ground. It landed on an angle that captured her in frame. Wendy was on her knees, her eyes squeezed shut, her hands clawing the ground, struggling to find a way. The damage from the crown of glass and thorns was in her scratched and bloodied forehead, rivulets of blood beading down her pale face. Illuminated in the glow from the water, she looked almost ethereal. It looked like she was trying to get to the pool, forcing her body across the ground. There was something in the pool, at least that's what someone in the chat said. "Look in the pool!" they were yelling. When I did, I didn't see anything at first glance. Looking at it again, though, there was something dark under the surface. It looked like shadows, figures, like drowned bodies coming together to form a mass. When Wendy reached the edge, when her fingers were grazing the surface, her eyes still shut, a boot stamped into frame. Then another. "Oh, Wendy," that same voice chuckled. "I was hoping I wouldn't have to force you." "Please." Her eyes were still shut, and I wondered why. Why were they shut? What was she avoiding? "What did you do to them?" she whispered. "Tommy and Jasper." She was trembling now. "Where are they?" "I didn't do anything to them," he murmured. And as he said those words, two figures loomed over the two of them. Tommy and Jasper. I didn't see their faces, only their legs, their bare feet dripping, red-tinged water stemming around them. The guy dropped to his knees beside the struggling girl and yanked her up by her hair. Oh, she screamed, but he pressed his hand over her mouth. Now, stop screaming. They're going to be reborn." "Reborn?" The word flittered through her lips. What are you talking about?" But instead of answering her, the man just sighed. "Oh, it's a nice night, Wendy," he said. "If only you'd open yourself up for the light, just like your boys have." He shoved her to the ground face first, kneeling on her back. "Oh, you see, we didn't want you at first. You're a small channel, and we don't want those. But then one of you came to us, and they had an offer we simply couldn't refuse. When Wendy screamed again, he crawled off her and grabbed her by the hair, dunking her head into the pool. She struggled at first, her cries turning into gurgles and splashes, but then she stopped, going limp. When he slowly withdrew her sopping head from the water, her eyes were still shut. He laughed. "Are you going to look?" he chuckled. "Or am I going to make you look?" And then I saw it. Milky white light, mesmerizing light. It lit up the sky and then the pool, as if the moon itself had taken a dive. Wendy was on her knees, shaking her head, and when I caught a glint of something silver, something sharp brushed the curve of her throat, I couldn't breathe. "You're pathetic," he spat, his lips kissing the back of her neck. "Anyone else would jump for this opportunity. Eternal life at the cost of your disgusting mortal flesh." When she struggled, he dug the blade deeper, and Wendy screamed. A deep, guttural screech which sent my heart into my throat and my finger to the X button. But I still didn't tap it. Bright red, speckled smooth, white stone beneath her. "Open your eyes," he murmured. I didn't see or hear Wendy Darlings give up, but I did notice her body had gone limp. Her eyes were open, only to be filled with mesmerizing light that I was enraptured by. She was forced to her feet then, joining Tommy and Jasper. I saw another pair of feet, and my mind filled with fog. Tommy, Jasper, Wendy. It was like I was looking for something that wasn't there, or my mind was seeing something I couldn't register. I was running their names through my head. Tommy, Jasper, Wendy. The three of them were shoved towards the pool, and I saw no rebellion, no attempt to get away. They reminded me of puppets whose strings had been cut. Tempting, the nameless man chuckled, before they skated the edge. They were so close, hanging over moonlit water. I waited for them to attack, to try and get away, but then I glimpsed bright red smearing the boys' necks and staining their shirts. The color painted them, their lips and chin, like they'd covered themselves in paint. But I knew it wasn't paint. It made me wonder if I was even looking at my favorite streamers anymore. From the look of them, the horrific state they were in, they looked dead. They looked dead. One by one, they dived into the pool with no persuasion. 4 splashes. I waited for them to come back up, but they didn't. I waited and waited. By the time I could breathe again, it had been 10 minutes. 10 minutes, and they were still under. The water was still, no sign of struggling. By now, only 3 of us were watching, though that number went down to 2. The stream went silent. Dark. It was like watching an image. The only way I knew it was live was because of the sky. The moon dipped back into the clouds, and it began to lighten, light oranges and purples streaking the horizon. I jumped at sudden movement, but it was just a beach ball bobbing along the surface. I think it was 6 a.m. when something happened. I'm still not quite sure what happened. I was watching the stream, me and this other person. We were both silent in the chat. I don't think either of us knew what to say. I was watching the water ripple, like wind rustling an empty beer can on the ground, before movement. This time it was the water itself. It seemed to come to life, illuminated under the sunrise. Tommy was first. He broke the surface without a breath. His hoodie was missing, leaving him half naked in jeans, his bare torso sculpted. I watched him swim to the edge and pull himself out with barely any effort. And there was something strange about him, something different. Maybe it was his much paler skin, a more defined jawline, strange markings carved into porcelain flesh just above his stomach. Though I saw it more in his eyes. His gaze landed on nothing. I found nothing. There was no spark of life. They were vacant. Jasper was next, still wrapped in his white shirt, which was glued to him. His eyes held no life, just like Tommy's. The two of them disappeared into the shadow, their soaking feet slapping on smooth concrete. Wendy came immediately after, and had noticeably changed like the boys, though her transformation was different. She was still pale, still gaunt, like her flesh could be ripped from her bones with one pull. But it was her body, the body she'd hated for so long, sculpted now into something I can only describe as grotesque. Oh, she was far too thin, her dress from the night before hugging an hourglass figure, and perfect cascading raven hair which dangled in front of her pale face. It might have been Wendy, or I guess any other girl's idea of the perfect body, but to me it was horrific. Wendy was greeted by the same guy who'd bullied her the night before. He threw a pink fluffy towel over her, wrapping it around her pale body. But she wasn't shivering. Her eyes, still glinting with moonlight, were someplace else. "Don't get wet from now on," he murmured, his wandering hands finding places on her they shouldn't. When she was led away, I was left staring at the pool. I don't know why I kept looking, why I kept expecting the water to ripple, for someone else to appear. Tommy, Jasper, Wendy. I keep writing their names, but something's wrong. Why does it feel wrong? Well, this morning Wendy tweeted. I wasn't expecting it. Wendy for idiots. So happy to say we're finally partnered with some great friends of mine so we can start making real content. How are you guys today? Some big things coming. Does anyone else feel like swimming today? I do. We're heading to the beach. Hope you guys are all having a great day. Attached to the tweet was a selfie of her in a bikini. Well, she looked beautiful, but the kind of beautiful that shouldn't be real. The kind of beautiful that girls dream about. Her smile looked empty. Fake. I couldn't make sense of it. Well, 10 minutes later, the tweet was gone, and then their accounts. Everything related to them had been wiped off the internet. And that's why I'm here, why I'm making this post. Does anyone else know these guys? Did anyone else watch the stream? Tell me I'm not crazy. Because I feel like I'm losing my mind. I keep typing their names, and my hands are freaking shaking. I keep writing their names, but I feel like there's something missing. I'm missing something, and I don't know what it is. The 4 idiots. Tommy, Jasper, Wendy. So go on then, tell me what you make of that one. Ooh, what a weird, messed up story that was for your Wednesday evening's entertainment. Well, I don't know, something about that one that really appealed to me. Don't mess with modern technology or it'll mess back with you. Something like that. Who knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, that was it for your Wednesday evening's entertainment. Of course, I'll be back again tomorrow with the podcast, and then again on Friday with something else extra special. And I do so hope you're going to join me again. Of course you are, aren't you? Well, my dear friends, till the next time, very, very sweet dreams, and bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. It really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.